The stars burned bright against the black void of space, but Admiral Kim Dae-ho felt no joy as he watched the last Vorthak warship explode into 1,000,000 pieces. The bridge of his flagship, the mighty Korea, was silent except for the soft beeping of computers and the quiet breathing of his crew. They had won the war, but the victory tasted like ash in his mouth. "Admiral, we're getting reports from all sectors," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Park So-jin. Her voice was steady, but Kim could hear the exhaustion beneath her professional tone. They had been fighting for 3 years, and everyone was tired. "The Vorthak fleet is completely destroyed. Their home worlds are surrendering." Kim nodded slowly. "Good. Send word to Earth. Tell them the war is over." But even as he said the words, something felt wrong. The final battle had been too easy. The Vorthak had fought like wild animals for 3 years, never giving up, never backing down. So why had they suddenly collapsed in the last fight? Why had their defenses failed so completely? "Sir," called out Ensign Bang Woo-jin from the scanner station, "I'm reading some strange energy signatures from our own ships. It looks like several vessels broke formation during the battle and jumped to hyperspace." Kim frowned. "Which ships?" "The Thunder Dragon, the Soul's Pride, and the Iron Fist," Bang replied, checking his readings again. "They all left right before we destroyed the Vorthak command ship." A cold feeling settled in Kim's stomach. Those were all ships commanded by officers he trusted, or thought he trusted. "Get me Admiral Lee Han-sol on the communication system," he ordered. Park So-jin worked at her console for several minutes, then looked up with worry in her eyes. "Sir, I can't reach any of those ships. Their communication systems appear to be offline." "Try the Thunder Dragon's backup systems," Kim said. "No response, sir. It's like they just disappeared." Kim stood up from his command chair and walked to the main display screen. The tactical map showed the positions of all the human ships in the fleet. 3 red dots marked where the missing vessels should have been. They were gone, vanished into the darkness between the stars. "Pull up the battle recordings," Kim commanded. "I want to see exactly what happened." The main screen flickered and showed the replay of the final battle. Kim watched as hundreds of human ships fought against the Vorthak fleet. The enemy had put up a good fight at first, their purple energy weapons cutting through space like deadly lightning. But then something changed. The Vorthak ships had started exploding one by one, their shields failing for no clear reason. "Stop the recording," Kim said suddenly. "Go back 30 seconds. The image rewound, and Kim studied it carefully. There, in the corner of the screen, he could see the Thunder Dragon firing not at the enemy, but at the defensive satellites protecting the Vorthak command ship. The shots were precise, taking out the shields just moments before the human fleet's main attack. "My God," whispered Park So-jin, who had been watching over his shoulder. "They were helping us." "No," Kim said grimly. "They were helping themselves." Over the next several hours, more troubling facts came to light. The missing ships had taken with them nearly 50,000 tons of military supplies, including the new quantum torpedo designs and the plans for Earth's latest defense systems. Worse, they had also stolen the complete star charts showing the locations of every human colony and military base. Captain Shin Yuri, the fleet's intelligence officer, brought Kim the worst news of all. She entered his ready room with a data pad in her hands and a grim expression on her face. "Admiral, I've been going through the communication logs," she said, placing the pad on his desk. "I found something you need to see." Kim picked up the pad and read the report. His face grew darker with each line. The missing ships had been sending coded messages to unknown recipients for weeks before the final battle. The messages contained detailed information about human battle plans and ship positions. They were feeding information to someone, Kim said. But who? That's what worries me, Shin replied. The messages weren't going to the Vorthak. They were being sent to coordinates in deep space, far beyond any known alien territory. Kim leaned back in his chair. So we have traitors in our own fleet, and they're working for someone we don't even know about. It gets worse, sir. I've been analyzing the battle data, and I think I know how the Vorthak defenses failed so easily. Someone gave us the exact frequencies of their shield generators. Someone who had access to their most secret technology. Lee Han-sol, Kim said quietly. He was one of our best officers. I trusted him with my life. I'm sorry, sir, but the evidence is clear. Admiral Lee and his followers have betrayed humanity. Kim stood up and walked to the window of his ready room. Outside, he could see the wreckage of the Vorthak fleet floating in space like dead metal flowers. His people were celebrating their victory, but he knew the truth. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. "Get me Commander Yoon Min Ho," he ordered, "and tell him to bring his best people. We have traitors to catch." When Yoon arrived an hour later, Kim explained the situation. The young commander listened, without interruption, his face growing more serious with each detail. "So these traitors have our best weapons and all our military secrets," Yoon said when Kim finished. "And they're working for someone we've never even heard of." "That's right, and they have a head start of almost 6 hours. What are your orders, sir?" Kim turned to face him. "I'm giving you command of a special unit. Pick your best people and the fastest ships. Your mission is simple. Find these traitors and stop them before they can do any more damage." "And if they resist?" Kim's expression was hard as steel. "Then you have permission to use any force necessary. They chose to betray their own species. They deserve whatever they get." Yoon saluted sharply. "I understand, sir. We'll bring them back." "Dead or alive," Kim added. "I don't care which." As Yoon left to begin his preparations, Kim returned to the bridge. The celebration was still going on throughout the fleet. His people thought they had won a great victory against an alien enemy. They didn't know that their real enemies were humans who had sold out their own kind for unknown rewards. "Admiral," Park So-jin said as he took his command chair, "Earth is asking for a full report on our casualties and losses." "Tell them we lost more than ships and people," Kim replied. "Tell them we lost our innocence. The stars outside still burned bright, but now they seemed cold and distant. Somewhere, out there in the darkness between worlds, human traitors were carrying the secrets that could destroy everything they had fought to protect. The war with the Vorthak was over, but a new kind of war was about to begin. This time, humanity would be fighting against its own children, and Kim had a terrible feeling that this new war would be much harder to win. Commander Yoon Min Ho stood in the empty hangar bay of the military station above Earth, watching as workers loaded supplies onto his new ship. The vessel was sleek and black, built for speed and stealth rather than the heavy fighting that had won the war against the Vorthak. Its name was painted in white letters on the side. "Vengeance." "She's a beauty," said a voice behind him. Yoon turned to see Captain Park So-jin walking up the loading ramp. She had been transferred to his unit just that morning, along with her. "Personal recommendation from Admiral Kim himself. She'll need to be," Yoon replied. "We're going to be chasing ghosts across the galaxy." Park nodded, understanding the difficulty of their mission. The traitors had a 6-day head start now, and space was vast. Finding 3 ships in the emptiness between stars would be like looking for 3 specific snowflakes in a blizzard. Have you chosen the rest of the team? Park asked. Most of them. We'll have Lieutenant Choi Hana as our pilot. She's young, but she's the best flyer in the fleet. Sergeant Bang Woo-jin will handle tactics and strategy, and Specialist Shin Yuri will be our intelligence officer. What about weapons and engineering? I'm still working on that. We need people who are good at their jobs, but also people we can trust completely. After what happened with Lee Han-sol, I'm not taking any chances. As if summoned by his words, a young woman in a flight suit came jogging up the ramp. Lieutenant Choi Ha-na was small and quick, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She saluted both officers. Commander Yoon, Captain Park, the ship's flight systems are all checked and ready. When do we leave? As soon as the rest of the team arrives, Yoon said. Are you ready for this, Lieutenant? We might be gone for months. Hana grinned. Sir, I've been flying since I was 12 years old. My father taught me on old cargo ships before the war started. I can handle anything these traitors throw at us. Yoon liked her confidence, but he hoped it wouldn't get her killed. They were hunting experienced military officers who knew all the same tricks they did. Sergeant Bang Woo-jin arrived an hour later, carrying a large case full of tactical computers. He was older than the others, maybe 40, with gray starting to show in his hair. He had been a professor of military strategy before the war, and his planning had saved thousands of lives during the fighting. Commander, he said, setting down his equipment, I've been studying the data on our targets. Admiral Lee Han-sol, Captain Nam Tae-hyun, and Commander Go Min-jae, all excellent officers with clean records until now. What's your analysis? Yun asked. They didn't just run away on impulse. This was planned for months, maybe years. Look at the ships they chose to steal. The Thunder Dragon has the best sensors in the fleet. Soul's Pride has the fastest engines, and the Iron Fist has enough weapons to fight a small war. So they picked their tools carefully. Exactly. And the supplies they took weren't random either. Food and water for long journeys, medical supplies, and enough fuel cells to keep them running for years without stopping at any human stations. Shin Yuri was the last to arrive. She was a quiet woman who seemed to notice everything but said very little. She had been the one to discover the traitors' secret messages, and Yoon hoped she could find them again. Any new intelligence? Yoon asked as she came aboard. Some. I've been monitoring all communication channels looking for any trace of our targets. Nothing direct, but I did pick up some interesting chatter from the neutral trading stations on the Rim. What kind of chatter? People talking about new players in the black market. Someone selling military-grade equipment to anyone with enough money. High-quality stuff. The kind only major governments usually have. Yoon felt a cold chill run down his spine. They're selling our secrets. It looks that way, and there's something else. The buyers aren't just criminals and pirates. Some of them are aliens, Vorthak survivors who escaped the final battle. Damn, muttered Park. They're arming our former enemies. We need to move fast, Yoon said. If they sell the wrong information to the wrong people, Earth could be in serious danger. The team spent the rest of the day planning their mission. Bang spread out star charts on the ship's main table, marking the locations of all the known trading stations and smuggler bases in the outer systems. Shin set up her computers to monitor every communication frequency she could reach. Hana ran through the ship's systems, making sure everything was working perfectly. As night fell on Earth below them, Yoon gathered his team in the ship's small meeting room. Before we leave, there's something you all need to understand, he said. We're Not just chasing criminals. We're hunting people who used to be our friends, our fellow soldiers. Some of you might have served with them. This isn't going to be easy. Are we authorized to use lethal force? Asked Bang. If necessary, yes. Admiral Kim's orders were clear. These people have betrayed their own species. They're enemies now, no matter what they used to be. Hana raised her hand. Commander, what if some of them want to surrender? What if they realize they made a mistake? Then we'll accept their surrender and bring them back for trial. But don't count on it. People don't betray everything they've ever believed in without a very good reason. Whatever convinced them to turn traitor, it's probably still convincing them now. Do we have any idea what that reason might be? Asked Park. Shin spoke up for the first time. I've been thinking about that. The messages they sent weren't just random. They were going to specific coordinates in deep space, far from any known civilization. Someone was waiting for those messages. Someone who knew they were coming. Another alien species? Yoon guessed. Maybe. Or maybe something worse. What if the HFY War was just the beginning? What if there are other enemies out there? Enemies we don't even know about yet? The room fell silent as everyone considered this possibility. They had all assumed that defeating the HFY would bring peace to the galaxy. But what if they had only defeated the weakest of their enemies? Well, said Hana finally, I guess we'll find out when we catch them. Yoon nodded. Get some sleep, everyone. We launch at dawn. And remember, once we leave Earth's protection, we're on our own. No backup, no reinforcements. Just us against whatever we find out there. As the team dispersed to their quarters, Yoon remained in the meeting room, staring at the star charts. Somewhere among those billions of points of light, 3 ships full of traitors were carrying the secrets that could destroy humanity. His job was to find them and stop them. He just hoped he wasn't already too late. Outside the ship's windows, Earth turned slowly in the darkness, blue and white and beautiful. It was the home of 12 billion people who had no idea how much danger they were in. Yoon made a silent promise to keep them safe no matter what the cost. The hunt was about to begin. The trading station called Haven's Rest floated in the empty space between star systems like a metal island in an ocean of darkness. It was supposed to be neutral territory, a place where anyone could buy or sell anything without questions being asked. But as the Vengeance approached the station, Commander Yoon Min-ho knew that neutrality was about to end. I'm reading 3 ships docked at the station, reported Lieutenant Choi Hana from the pilot's seat. One of them matches the energy signature of the Thunder Dragon. Yoon felt his heart rate increase. After 2 weeks of chasing false leads and dead ends, they had finally found their target. Can you identify the other ships? Specialist Shin Yu-ri worked at her scanner console. One appears to be a HFY cruiser, heavily modified. The other is unknown, but the design looks alien. Not HFY, something else. They're selling to aliens, said Captain Park So-jin grimly. Just like we suspected. What's our approach? Asked Sergeant Bang Woo-jin. We can't just blast our way in. This is a neutral station with innocent people aboard. Yoon studied the tactical display. We go in quiet. Hana, dock us at Port 7 as far from the Thunder Dragon as possible. We'll pose as traders looking for supplies. And if they recognize us? Park asked. Then we improvise. The docking went smoothly. Haven's Rest was a busy place, with ships coming and going at all hours. The team split up as they entered the station. Yoon and Park headed for the main trading area, while Bang and Shin moved toward the information center. Hana stayed with the ship, ready for a quick departure. The station's central plaza was a maze of shops and bars, filled with humans, aliens, and creatures Yoon didn't recognize. The air smelled of exotic spices and engine fuel. Conversations in a dozen languages echoed off the metal walls. "There," Park whispered, pointing toward a corner booth in one of the bars. "Colonel Nam Tae-hyun." Yoon saw him immediately. Nam was sitting with two Vorthak officers, their purple skin making them easy to spot in the crowd. On the table between them was a small device that Yoon recognized as a quantum torpedo guidance system. "He's selling them our torpedo technology," Yoon said quietly into his communication device. "Bang, do you copy?" "I copy, Commander. I'm in position near the docking bay. No sign of Admiral Lee or Commander Go. Stay ready. We're moving in." Yoon and Park approached the booth slowly, trying to look like casual customers. But Nam was too experienced to be caught off guard. His eyes found Yoon's face in the crowd, and his expression changed from relaxed to alert in an instant. "Commander Yoon," Nam said loudly enough for the whole bar to hear. "What a surprise to see you here." The Vorthak officers reached for their weapons, but Nam held up a hand to stop them. "No need for violence, friends. These are old colleagues of mine." Yoon stopped a few feet from the table, his hand resting casually on the grip of his pistol. "Colonel Nam, you've been a hard man to find." "I imagine so. Please sit down. Let's talk like civilized people." "I'd rather stand. You're under arrest for treason, theft of military property, and conspiracy against the human government." Nam laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Treason? Is it treason to try to save humanity from itself?" "What are you talking about? You have no idea what's really happening, do you?" Nam leaned forward, his eyes intense. The Vorthak War was just a test, a way for the real enemy to see how strong we are. "What real enemy?" "The Keth Mori. They've been watching us for years, studying us, learning our weaknesses. They're the ones who started the war between humans and Vorthak in the first place." One of the Vorthak officers spoke up, his voice like gravel. "Your colonel speaks truth, human. My people were deceived, manipulated into fighting you. We were all puppets dancing to Keth Mori strings." Yoon felt confused. This wasn't what he had expected. "Even if that's true, it doesn't justify what you've done. You've stolen our secrets and sold them to our enemies." "To save them," Nam snapped. "The Keth Mori are coming, Yoon. When they arrive, they'll destroy every human world, every Vorthak colony, every free species in the galaxy, unless we work together. By betraying Earth, by preparing for what's coming. These Vorthak soldiers are the survivors of their homeworld's destruction. They want revenge against the Keth Mori just as much as we do." Park stepped forward. "Colonel, even if everything you're saying is true, you should have brought this information to Earth Command. Not run away like a criminal. Would they have listened? Would they have believed that their great victory was actually a defeat?" Nam shook his head. "Humans are too proud, too stubborn. They would have dismissed the Keth Mori threat until it was too late. So you decided to take matters into your own hands." Someone had to. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of weapons being drawn all around the bar. Yoon looked around and realized they were surrounded. At least a dozen armed figures had quietly moved into position while they talked. "I'm sorry, Yoon," Nam said, "but I can't let you stop us. Too much depends on our mission." "Commander," came Hana's voice through the communication device. "We have a problem. More ships are arriving, and they're moving to surround the station. Fall back to the ship," Yoon ordered. Then he looked at Nam. This isn't over, Colonel. No, it isn't. But next time we meet, you'll understand why I did this. The fighting started when one of the Vorthak officers fired at Park. She dove behind an overturned table as energy blasts lit up the bar. Yoon drew his weapon and returned fire, trying to clear a path to the exit. "Bang! We need an exit!" he shouted into his communicator. "Working on it. I'm causing a distraction at the docking bay." Explosions echoed through the station as Bang set off charges near the fuel storage tanks. Emergency alarms began wailing and the lights flickered. In the confusion, Yoon and Park fought their way toward the door. "Hana!" Yoon called. "Start the engines!" "Already done, Commander. Docking clamps are released." They reached the Vengeance just as security forces arrived at the docking bay. Shin was waiting at the airlock, her computer equipment packed and ready to go. "I got some interesting data from the station's computers," she said as they ran aboard. "The Keth Mori are real, and they're a lot closer than we thought." The ship pulled away from Haven's Rest just as the Thunder Dragon undocked from the other side of the station. For a moment, the two ships faced each other across the empty space. "They're hailing us," Park reported. "Put them on screen." Admiral Lee Han Sol's face appeared on the main display. He looked older than Yoon remembered, and there was something different about his eyes. Something cold and distant. "Commander Yoon," Lee said, "you should have stayed on Earth. Admiral, you need to come back with us. Whatever the Keth Mori promised you, it's not worth betraying your own species." "Betray?" Lee smiled, but it wasn't a human expression. "I'm trying to save humanity from the fate that awaits all species that resist the Keth Mori. Absorption is better than extinction." "What do you mean, absorption?" But Lee had already cut the communication. The Thunder Dragon jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Vengeance alone with the burning trading station. "Commander," Hana said quietly. "Admiral Lee. He didn't look right. His eyes were different, almost like he wasn't entirely human anymore," Yoon finished. "Shin, what did you find in those computers?" "Keth Mori biotechnology. They're not just manipulating people with words and promises. They're changing them, rewriting their brains to be loyal to the Keth Mori cause." Yoon stared at the place where the Thunder Dragon had disappeared. The hunt had just become much more complicated. They weren't just chasing traitors anymore. They were chasing humans who might not be human anymore. The captured Vorthak officer sat in the holding cell aboard the Vengeance, his purple skin looking almost gray under the harsh ship lights. Commander Yoon Min Ho studied him through the transparent barrier, trying to understand what he was seeing. This alien had been buying human weapons just hours ago, but now he claimed to be an ally. "His name is Krexthan," said Specialist Shin Yuri, reading from her data pad. "He was a commander in the Vorthak fleet until his ship was destroyed in the final battle. Somehow he survived. And now he's working with our traitors," added Captain Park So-jin. "That makes him our enemy." "Maybe," Yoon said. "Let's hear what he has to say." They entered the holding cell together. Krexthan looked up at them with large, dark eyes that seemed surprisingly intelligent. When he spoke, his voice was rough but clear. "You are the human commander who leads this pursuit, yes? I have been waiting to speak with you." "I'm listening," Yoon said, pulling up a chair. "Start talking." "Your Colonel Nam told you about the Keth Mori. You did not believe him." "I'm still deciding what to believe. Tell me about these Keth Mori." "What are they?" Krexthan was quiet for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "They are old. Older than my people. Older than yours. They have been moving through the galaxy for thousands of years, finding species like ours and turning them against each other. Why? because direct conquest is difficult and expensive. It is easier to make two enemies destroy each other than move in to claim what remains. Park leaned forward. You're saying they made humans and Vorthak fight each other on purpose? Yes. They contacted my leaders years ago, told them about a dangerous new species that was expanding too quickly. They said humans would eventually threaten all other life in the galaxy unless they were stopped. And your people believed them? Some did. Others were more suspicious. But then the Kethmori provided proof. Battle plans that seemed to show human preparations for attacking Vorthak colonies. Communication intercepts that suggested humans saw my people as inferior beings to be enslaved or destroyed. Yoon felt sick. All fake? All fake. But very convincing. And when my people demanded more evidence, the Kethmori provided it. They even arranged for small incidents to happen. Human ships would appear near Vorthak space, scan our defenses, then disappear. Vorthak patrols would find human equipment left behind on uninhabited worlds. They were setting up both sides, Shin said, making each species think the other was the aggressor. Exactly. And when the war finally started, the Kethmori sat back and watched us tear each other apart. They learned about our weapons, our tactics, our weaknesses. They were preparing for the day when they would move in to finish off whoever survived. But we won, Park said. We defeated your people completely. Krexthan's expression grew sad. Yes. My species is nearly extinct now. Only a few thousand survivors remain, scattered across the galaxy. And now the Kethmori are ready for the next phase of their plan. Which is? To do to humanity what they did to us. Turn your own people against each other. Create a civil war that will weaken you enough for them to conquer. Yoon understood now. The traitors, they're not just selling our secrets, they're being used to start a war between humans. Your Admiral Lee and his followers believe they are saving humanity by joining the Kethmori. They think resistance is hopeless, that absorption into the Kethmori collective is better than extinction. Collective? The Kethmori do not simply kill the species they conquer. They absorb them. They use biotechnology to rewrite minds and bodies, turning conquered peoples into extensions of themselves. Your Admiral Lee is already changing. Soon he will not be human at all, but he will believe he is more human than ever. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just hunting traitors who had sold out for money or power. They were hunting humans who were being transformed into something else entirely. How do we stop them? Yoon asked. That is the question I have been hoping you would ask. The remaining Vorthak survivors have been trying to find a way to fight back against the Kethmori. We have learned some things about their technology, their methods, and you're willing to share this information? Your species and mine were manipulated into destroying each other. We both fell for the same lies. If we do not work together now, we will both be extinct within a generation. Park looked skeptical. How do we know this isn't another trick? How do we know you're not working for these Kethmori too? Krexthan reached into his clothing and pulled out a small device. Because I have this. The device was about the size of a coin, made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols were carved into its surface. What is it? Shin asked. A Kethmori communication implant. They tried to put it in my brain after my ship was destroyed. I managed to remove it before the process was complete, but it left me with some of their memories. Their memories? The implants work both ways. They can control you, but they also connect you to the Kethmori network. I saw flashes of their plans, their history, their true nature. That is how I know they are coming for Earth next. Yoon picked up the device and examined it. It felt cold and somehow wrong in his hands, like touching something that was alive but shouldn't be. "Show me what you saw," he said. Crexton closed his eyes and concentrated. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, becoming deeper and more mechanical. Species 47 Alpha designated for conversion. Phase 1 complete. Mutual destruction conflict achieved. Humans remain as primary target. Phase 2. Beginning. Insertion of conversion agents among surviving population. Admiral designation Lee Han-sol successfully implanted. Additional subjects being processed for infiltration. "My God," whispered Park. "They're turning our own people into weapons against us." Crexton opened his eyes, returning to normal. "There is more. I saw images of Earth's future if the Kethemori succeed. Your cities empty, your people transformed into mindless servants, your technology and knowledge absorbed into their collective consciousness." "How many of them are there?" Yoon asked. "Unknown. They exist mostly as a collective intelligence, sharing thoughts and memories across vast distances. But they do have physical bodies, ships, weapons. And they are very good at hiding." Shin had been taking notes throughout the conversation. "We need to get this information back to Earth immediately. Admiral Kim needs to know what we're really facing." "Agreed," Yoon said. "But first, we need to stop Lee and his people from doing any more damage." "Crexton, will you help us track them down?" The Vorthak officer nodded. "It would be my honor. My people owe your species a great debt for the war we were tricked into fighting. Perhaps together we can prevent the Kethemori from claiming any more victims." As they prepared to leave the holding cell, Crexton touched Yoon's arm. "Commander, there is one more thing you should know. The conversion process is not instant. Your Admiral Lee and his followers may still have some humanity left in them. If we can capture them before the transformation is complete, there might be a way to reverse it." "How do we tell how far gone they are?" "The eyes change first. They become distant, cold. Then the voice becomes more mechanical. Finally, the body itself begins to change, becoming stronger but less human." Yoon thought about the conversation with Admiral Lee at Haven's Rest. The cold eyes, the strange smile. How long do we have? For Lee? Perhaps days. For the others, maybe weeks. But time is running out for all of them. As they returned to the bridge, Yoon felt the weight of their new knowledge. The hunt had become something much bigger than catching a few traitors. They were now fighting for the future of humanity itself, and they were running out of time. The Vengeance moved through space like a hunting animal, its sensors reaching out into the darkness to find traces of its prey. Commander Yoon Minho stood on the bridge, watching the star charts as Specialist Shin Yuri worked to track their targets. "I'm picking up energy signatures from 3 ships, Shin reported. "They match our targets, but they're moving fast and changing course frequently." "How far ahead are they?" asked Captain Park Sojin. "About 4 hours. But they're heading into the fringe territories. That's lawless space, Commander. No rules, no backup if we get into trouble." Yoon nodded. The fringe was where criminals and rebels went to hide from civilization. It was also where desperate people went to disappear. If the traitors reached the deep fringe, they could hide for years. "Crexton, any insights?" Yoon asked their Vorthak ally. The purple-skinned alien studied the display with his large, dark eyes. "The Kethemori have bases in the deep regions of space, places where no government sends patrols. Your Admiral Lee is probably heading for one of them. Can you identify which one? There are 3 possibilities in this sector. All of them are hidden inside asteroid fields or nebulae. Very difficult to find unless you know exactly where to look. Lieutenant Choi Ha-na turned from her pilot station. Commander, if we push the engines hard, we can catch up to them before they reach the first possible base. But it will be dangerous. We'll have to fly through the Devil's Garden. Yoon had heard of the Devil's Garden. It was an asteroid field full of unstable rocks and energy storms. Many ships had been lost trying to navigate through it. What do you think, Hana? Can you get us through? The young pilot grinned. Sir, I once flew a cargo hauler through a collapsing star system. The Devil's Garden is just a bunch of rocks. Do it. As the Vengeance accelerated toward the asteroid field, Sergeant Bang Woo-jin worked on tactical plans. If we catch them in the garden, they'll have limited room to maneuver. But the same goes for us. One mistake, and we all get crushed. What about their weapons? Park asked. The Thunder Dragon has the heaviest guns, but Soul's Pride is faster and the Iron Fist has better shields. If they work together, there'll be a tough fight. They're not working together anymore, Crexton said quietly. The Keth Mori conversion process changes people in ways that make cooperation difficult. Your Admiral Lee is probably giving orders that the others are starting to resent. Explain. As the implants take over their minds, converted beings become more focused on their individual roles in the collective. They lose the ability to think creatively or adapt to unexpected situations. Admiral Lee is becoming a controller, while the others are becoming tools. So they'll be predictable? More predictable than they used to be, yes, but also more dangerous. They will take risks that normal humans would avoid because they no longer fear death the same way. The asteroid field appeared on their screens like a wall of tumbling rock and metal. Some of the asteroids were small, no bigger than houses. Others were massive, the size of cities. Energy storms crackled between them, creating a deadly light. Show! Entering the Devil's Garden, Hana announced. Everyone hold on. The ship shook as it was caught by the gravitational pull of the larger asteroids. Hana's hands danced over the controls, steering them between the spinning rocks with skill that seemed almost supernatural. Contact, Shin called out. 3 ships, bearing 27 Mark IV. They're trying to lose us in the asteroid maze. Can you get us closer? Yoon asked. Working on it. But they know these rocks better than we do. A massive explosion lit up the space ahead of them as 2 asteroids collided, sending fragments flying in all directions. Hana rolled the ship to avoid the debris, bringing them closer to one of the target vessels. That's the Soul's Pride, Bang identified. Captain Go Min-jae's ship. Hail them, Yoon ordered. Go's face appeared on the screen, but like Admiral Lee, his eyes had changed. They were colder now, more mechanical. Commander Yoon, Go said in a voice that sounded almost normal but somehow wrong. You should not have followed us here. Captain Go, you need to surrender. We know about the Keth Mori. We know what they're doing to you. They are saving us. Saving all of humanity from the chaos and conflict that defines your species. By turning you into slaves? By making us perfect. No more war, no more suffering, no more uncertainty, only purpose and unity. Behind Go, Yoon could see other figures moving around the bridge of the Soul's Pride. Some of them looked human, but others were clearly alien. And there was something wrong with all of them. Something in the way they moved. Go, listen to me. You're still human. You can still choose to come back. I have already chosen. We all have. The transmission cut off, and immediately the Soul's Pride opened fire. Energy beams lanced through the asteroid field, barely missing the Vengeance. "Return fire," Yoon ordered. The space battle that followed was unlike anything any of them had experienced. Fighting among asteroids meant that both ships had to constantly change direction to avoid crashing into the tumbling rocks. Weapons fire that missed its target could hit an asteroid and cause massive explosions that threatened both ships. "The Thunder Dragon is coming around behind us," Park warned. "I see it," Hana said, spinning the ship to avoid another volley of fire. "These rocks are making it hard to get a clear shot." "Use them to our advantage," Bang suggested. "Hide behind the larger asteroids and force them to come to us." Hana flew the Vengeance behind a city-sized asteroid, using its bulk to shield them from enemy fire. The Thunder Dragon followed, its heavier weapons blasting chunks off the rock as it tried to reach them. "Now!" Yoon commanded. The Vengeance emerged from behind the asteroid and fired everything it had at the Thunder Dragon. Their enemy's shields flared and failed, and several weapons turrets were destroyed, but Admiral Lee's ship wasn't finished. It rammed into a smaller asteroid, using the impact to change course suddenly and bring its main guns to bear on the Vengeance. "Brace for impact!" Hana yelled. The Thunder Dragon's main cannon fired, and the energy beam struck the Vengeance directly. The ship's shields held, but barely. Alarms sounded throughout the vessel. "Hull breach on Deck 3, someone reported. "Life support is failing in that section." "Seal it off," Yoon ordered. "Hana, get us out of here." "Working on it. But the Soul's Pride is blocking our exit." Captain Go's ship had positioned itself between the Vengeance and open space, trapping them in the asteroid field. And now the Iron Fist was approaching from another direction, completing the trap. "They're herding us toward something," Bang realized. "Look at the pattern of their movements." On the tactical display, Yoon could see what the sergeant meant. The three enemy ships weren't just attacking randomly. They were forcing the Vengeance toward a specific area of the asteroid field. "What's over there?" he asked. Shin checked her sensors. "I'm reading some kind of structure hidden among the asteroids. It's artificial. Definitely not natural." "A Keth Mori base? Possibly. Or maybe a trap." The structure became visible as they were pushed closer to it. It was a massive space station built into and around several large asteroids. Parts of it looked human, but other sections were clearly alien. And there were ships docked to it, lots of them. "My God," Park whispered. "How long have they been building this?" "Years," Krexthon said grimly. "The Kethamori always prepare for their conquests carefully. This base has probably been here since before your war with my people began. We need to get word back to Earth," Yoon said. "They have to know about this." But getting back to Earth meant getting past 3 enemy ships and out of the asteroid field. And now the space station was powering up weapons of its own, massive energy cannons that could probably destroy the Vengeance with a single shot. "Hana," Yoon said quietly. "How good are you, really?" The young pilot was sweating now, her hands moving constantly over the controls as she kept them alive in the chaos of the asteroid field. "Good enough, sir. But I'm going to need help." "What kind of help?" "Someone needs to keep those ships busy while I find us a way out. And someone needs to make sure that station doesn't get a clear shot at us." Bang studied the tactical situation. "I have an idea, but it's crazy." "I'm listening." "We use the asteroids themselves as weapons. If we can destabilize the right ones, we can cause a chain reaction that will block the station's weapons and give us cover to escape. Do it." As the Vengeance weaved between the tumbling rocks, its weapons targeted specific asteroids, not to destroy them, but to change their orbits. One by one, the massive rocks began moving toward the space station. "They're catching on," Park warned. "The Thunder Dragon is moving to stop us." "Then we stop them first," Yoon said. "All weapons target their engines." The final battle in the Devil's Garden was brief but intense. The Vengeance, smaller and more maneuverable than its enemies, used the asteroid field to its advantage. While the Traitor ships struggled to navigate the chaotic environment, Hana flew through gaps that seemed impossible, striking and disappearing, before they could respond. When the chain reaction finally began, hundreds of asteroids started moving toward the hidden base. The Kethmori station's weapons opened fire, trying to destroy the incoming rocks, but there were too many of them. The emergency alarm on the bridge of the Vengeance cut through the quiet like a knife. Commander Yoon Min-ho jolted awake in his command chair, where he had been dozing after 36 hours without sleep. "What's happening?" he asked, shaking, the fatigue from his mind. Specialist Shin Yuri was already at her station, her fingers flying over the communication controls. "Commander, we're receiving distress calls from multiple human colonies. New Seoul, Haven's Gate, and Prosperity Station are all under attack." "By who?" "That's the problem, sir. The attacking ships are using human identification codes. According to their transponders, they're Earth Defense Fleet vessels." Captain Park So-jin joined them on the bridge, still pulling on her uniform jacket. "Are you saying Earth is attacking its own colonies?" "No," said Crexton, who had been monitoring the alien communication frequencies. "This is the Kethmori's next move. They are using your traitors to make it appear that humanity is fighting itself." Yoon understood immediately. "A false flag operation. Make it look like Earth has gone rogue, attacking innocent colonists. That would turn every human settlement against the home world, and give the Kethmori the civil war they need to justify their intervention," Park added. Lieutenant Choi Ha-na had been listening from the pilot's station. "Commander, we're still 3 days from the nearest colony at maximum speed. By the time we get there, it'll be over." "What about Earth Command? Have they responded to the distress calls?" Shin shook her head. "I'm not picking up any fleet transmissions. Either they're not responding or their communications are being jammed." Sergeant Bang Woo-jin entered the bridge carrying a data pad, full of tactical information. "I've been analyzing the attack patterns. The raiders are hitting the most isolated colonies first, places where there won't be many witnesses. But they're leaving survivors, people who can spread the story that Earth has turned against its own children." "Clever," Yoon admitted. "If the colonies believe Earth is the enemy, they'll start organizing resistance movements. That gives the Kethmori local allies when they arrive to liberate the oppressed colonists." "What's our move?" Park asked. Before Yoon could answer, the ship's communication system activated. Admiral Kim Dae-ho's tired face appeared on the main screen. "Commander Yoon, thank God we found you. We need you back at Earth immediately." "Admiral, we know about the colony attacks. The traitors are using our own ships to—" "It's worse than that," Kim interrupted. 3 hours ago, the Thunder Dragon and Seoul's Pride jumped into Earth orbit and fired on Luna Base. They destroyed the main communication array and damaged the orbital defense platforms. The bridge fell silent. Luna Base was the heart of Earth's defense network. Without it, the home world was vulnerable to attack. "How much damage?" Yoon asked. "Enough. We can't coordinate with the outer colonies anymore, and our defense grid has gaps big enough to fly a battleship through. But that's not the worst part." "What could be worse?" "The Thunder Dragon is broadcasting on all frequencies, claiming that Earth Command has been infiltrated by alien agents. Admiral Lee is telling the colonies that he's leading a resistance. movement to free humanity from alien control. And people are believing him? Some are. The attacks on the colonies are being blamed on these supposed alien infiltrators. Lee is positioning himself as humanity's savior. Park cursed under her breath. It's brilliant and horrible at the same time. He's using our own victory against the Vorthak to justify his betrayal. Admiral, Yoon said, we have intelligence about the real enemy. The Keth Mori are... Save it for the briefing, Kim interrupted. Right now I need you to choose between two missions. Either return to Earth to help defend the home world or try to stop the attacks on the colonies. I can't be in two places at once. Then choose wisely. Because if we lose Earth, nothing else matters. But if we lose the colony's loyalty, we'll be fighting a civil war on top of everything else. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Yoon stared at the star chart, trying to weigh impossible choices. Commander, Hana said quietly, I might have another option. I'm listening. The colony attacks are following a pattern. Bang figured out they're hitting the most isolated settlements first, then working their way toward the more populated systems. If we can get ahead of them, we might be able to intercept them at their next target. Bang nodded. According to their current pattern, the next attack should be on New Busan Colony. It's a mining settlement with about 50,000 people. And it's only 18 hours away at maximum speed, Hana added. But that means abandoning Earth when it's under threat, Park pointed out. Crexton spoke up from his position near the sensor station. Commander, may I suggest something? In my experience fighting the Keth Mori, their strategy relies on confusion and misdirection. They want you to make emotional decisions instead of logical ones. What do you mean? Earth is heavily defended, even with the damage to Luna Base. The Keth Mori are not ready for a direct assault on your home world yet. But if they can turn the colonies against Earth, they weaken your species without firing a shot. So you think the colony attacks are the real threat? I think stopping the false flag operations is more important than rushing back to defend a world that is not currently under direct attack. Yoon considered this. It went against every instinct he had as a military officer. Earth was home, the heart of human civilization, but Crexton was right about Keth Mori tactics. We go to New Busan, he decided, but first we send a message to Earth Command with everything we know about the Keth Mori. What if the traitors intercept it? Shin asked. Then we'll have to hope Admiral Kim is smart enough to read between the lines. As the Vengeance changed course toward New Busan Colony, Yoon felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every choice seemed to lead to disaster. Save Earth and lose the colonies, or save the colonies and risk Earth. There had to be a better way. Commander, Bang said, studying his tactical data, I think I know how we can expose the traitors for what they really are. How? We let them attack New Busan, but we record everything. If we can get clear evidence that the attacking ships are being controlled by aliens, we can broadcast it to every colony in human space. That's a hell of a risk. 50,000 people could die while we're gathering evidence. Or 50 million. Could die in a civil war if we don't prove the truth. Crexton nodded approvingly. The sergeant thinks like a Keth Mori hunter. Sometimes you must risk the few to save the many. There's another problem, Park said. Even if we get the evidence, who's going to believe it? The traitors have been very careful to maintain their human appearance during the attacks. That's where I come in, Shin said. I've been studying the Keth Mori biotechnology from the data we recovered. Their implants emit a specific energy signature. If I can modify our sensors to detect it, we can prove that the attackers aren't fully human anymore. How long do you need? Give me 12 hours. You've got 8. We need to be ready when the traitors arrive. As the ship raced through space toward New Busan Colony, each member of the crew prepared for what might be their most important battle yet. Not just a fight for their own survival, but a fight for the truth itself. Because if they failed to expose the Kethmori deception, humanity would tear itself apart long before the real enemy revealed itself. And in the depths of space, Admiral Lee Han-sol sat in his command chair aboard the Thunder Dragon, his cold eyes staring at the tactical display. The conversion process was nearly complete now. Soon he would be more than human, a perfect servant of the Kethmori collective. But first, he had one more colony to destroy, one more lie to tell in the name of humanity's salvation. The war for the soul of the human species was about to begin. The surface of the Kethmori homeworld was a nightmare of twisted metal and dying flesh. Commander Yoon Min-ho stared at the images on the Vengeance's main screen, trying to understand what he was seeing. The planet looked like it had once been beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. Now it was covered in massive biomechanical structures that pulsed with sickly light. "How did we find this place?" asked Captain Park, So-jin, her voice barely above a whisper. Specialist Shin Yu-ri checked her instruments. "The energy signature from Admiral Lee's implant led us here. When we exposed the truth at New Busan, we damaged the Kethmori network. The implant started broadcasting their home coordinates as a distress signal. The battle at New Busan had been a success, but at a terrible cost. They had managed to record clear evidence of the Kethmori control over the Traitor ships, broadcasting the proof to every human colony in known space. But Lieutenant Choi Hana had been severely wounded when the Thunder Dragon had exploded, taking Admiral Lee with it. "Any sign of survivors down there?" Yoon asked. "Lots of them," Shin replied grimly. "But I don't think they're entirely alive anymore." The scanner images showed millions of figures moving across the planet's surface. From a distance, they looked human, but the closer views revealed the horrible truth. They were hybrid creatures, part flesh and part machine, shambling through the ruins of what had once been cities. "Those used to be the original inhabitants of this world," said Krexthon. The Vorthak officer had become invaluable during their hunt for the truth. The Kethmori absorbed them centuries ago, turning them into living tools. "And that's what they want to do to humanity," Park said, "to all free species in the galaxy. They are the ultimate parasites, feeding on the minds and bodies of others to extend their own existence." Sergeant Bang Woo-jin studied the tactical display. "I'm reading massive energy sources beneath the planet's surface, some kind of underground facility." "That will be where they keep their true selves," Krexthon explained. "The Kethmori you see on the surface are just extensions of the collective consciousness. The real minds, the original Kethmori, will be deep underground, where they're safe. How do we get to them?" "Very carefully. The surface defenses are probably extensive, and we don't know how many converted beings are down there." Yoon made his decision. "We're going down. Hana, how are you feeling?" The young pilot was pale and her left arm was in a bio-regeneration sleeve, but she managed a weak grin. "Good enough to fly, sir. Just don't ask me to do any aerobatics." "We'll take a small team. Me, Park, Bang, and Krexthon. Shin, you stay with the ship and monitor communications. If we don't make it back, get this information to Earth." "Sir, I should come with you. You might need someone who understands Kethmori technology. And I need someone I trust to make sure our discoveries reach home. That's you." As they prepared for the landing, Yoon couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The Kethmori had been planning their conquest for years. They had to know that humans would eventually track them to their homeworld. The shuttle ride to the surface was eerily quiet. The planet's atmosphere was thick and poisonous, forcing them to wear environment suits. As they descended through the toxic clouds, the surface became visible in all its corrupted glory. "Landing zone appears clear," Hana reported, though her voice was strained with pain. "Setting down near what looks like an entrance to the underground facility." The entrance was a massive archway carved into the side of a mountain, surrounded by the twisted remains of what might once have been a garden. Hybrid creatures wandered nearby, but they seemed to ignore the landing shuttle. "Why aren't they attacking?" Bang asked as they left the shuttle. "Because we are expected," Krexthon said grimly. "The Kethmori want us to come inside." The archway led to a tunnel that descended deep into the planet's core. The walls were covered with a substance that looked like living metal, pulsing with internal light. As they walked deeper, they began to hear sounds, whispers in languages they didn't recognize, and beneath that, something that might have been singing. "Stay together," Yoon ordered, "and watch for—" He was interrupted by a voice. That seemed to come from the walls themselves. "Welcome, humans! We have been waiting for you!" The tunnel opened into a vast chamber filled with impossible architecture. Towers of living metal spiraled toward a ceiling lost in darkness. And everywhere, covering every surface, were the Kethmori themselves. They were not what Yoon had expected. Instead of the powerful aliens he had imagined, the Kethmori looked ancient and frail. They were barely more than withered husks connected to the biomechanical systems that covered the chamber. Walls, tubes, and wires ran from their bodies into the living metal, making them part of the structure itself. "You are surprised," the voice said. "You expected us to be mighty conquerors. Instead, you find us as we truly are, a dying species clinging to existence through the theft of other lives." One of the Kethmori, slightly larger than the others, turned its attention toward them. Its eyes were like black holes, empty of everything except hunger. "I am the primary consciousness of this collective. I am what remains of a proud civilization that chose survival over dignity." "You've murdered billions of people," Park said, angrily. "Entire species wiped out to feed your addiction to other lives. We have preserved them. Every mind we absorb becomes part of our collective. They live on within us, their memories and experiences adding to our knowledge, as slaves. As components of something greater than they could ever have been alone." Krexthon stepped forward. "I have felt your preservation, monster. You don't preserve minds. You devour them, leaving only empty shells that serve your will." The Vorthak speaks from ignorance. His people resisted our gift, forcing us to use more aggressive methods. Humans, however, have shown themselves to be more adaptable. Like Admiral Lee? Yes. He understood that resistance was futile. His transformation was almost complete when you destroyed him, a waste of a promising specimen. Yoon felt sick. "What do you want from us? Your species has proven remarkably resilient and creative. Your victory over the Vorthak impressed us greatly. We offer you the same choice we offered Admiral Lee. Join us willingly and retain some measure of individual consciousness within our collective. Resist and be absorbed by force. There's a third option," Bang said quietly, "which is, we destroy you all." The primary consciousness laughed, a sound like metal grinding against stone. "With what? Your small weapons? This facility has existed for millennia. It has survived the death of stars and the collapse of civilizations. Maybe, Yoon said. But has it ever survived the destruction of its power source? He had noticed something during their descent into the chamber. The biomechanical systems all seemed to be connected to a central core, a massive pulsing structure at the heart of the facility. If they could damage that. You think like a primitive, the primary consciousness said, but your thoughts are already known to us. We have been reading your minds since you entered our domain. That's when Yoon realized they had walked into a trap. But it wasn't the kind of trap he had expected. You wanted us to find this place, he said. You wanted us to see what you really are. Of course. Fear is a powerful motivator. When your species learns of our true nature, some will choose to surrender rather than face absorption by force. Your own example will convince them. You're counting on us to spread terror. We are counting on you to be human, selfish, short-sighted, and ultimately cowardly. Some of your people will choose survival over principle, just as Admiral Lee did. That's when Yoon understood the real trap. The Kethmori didn't just want to capture them, they wanted to convert them and send them back to Earth as living examples of the futility of resistance. Sorry to disappoint you, he said, reaching for the explosive charges he had hidden in his equipment pack. But before he could move, something unexpected happened. Hana's voice crackled through their communication system. Commander, you need to get out of there now. I'm reading massive energy buildup throughout the facility. Something big is about to happen. The primary consciousness's empty eyes widened in what might have been surprise. Impossible. Our sensors detected no weapons capable of threatening our core systems. That's because it's not a weapon, Krexthon said with grim satisfaction. It's a virus. A computer virus designed specifically to attack Kethmori biotechnology. What? The Vorthak survivors have been working on it for years. A way to turn your own technology against you. We uploaded it to your network when we first entered this chamber. The living metal on the walls began to pulse erratically. Throughout the facility, hybrid creatures started collapsing as their control systems failed. The primary consciousness itself began to convulse as the virus spread through the collective network. Run! Yoon shouted. They raced through collapsing tunnels as the Kethmori facility tore itself apart around them. Behind them, they could hear the screams of the primary consciousness as millennia of stolen lives were finally set free. They reached the shuttle, just as the mountain began to cave in. Hana, despite her injuries, managed to get them airborne, seconds before the underground facility completely collapsed. 6 months after the destruction of the Kethmori homeworld, Commander Yoon Min-ho stood on the observation deck of the new orbital station above Earth. Through the transparent metal, he could see hundreds of ships coming and going, carrying soldiers, supplies, and hope to every corner of human space. The Galactic Security Division is officially operational, reported Captain Park So-jin, joining him at the window. She wore the new black and silver uniform that marked her as one of the elite hunters charged with protecting humanity from alien threats. How many teams do we have deployed? Yoon asked. 47 active hunter squads, each one led by a veteran of our original mission. They're tracking down the remaining Kethmori installations and making sure no other species tries to pull the same tricks. Through the window, Yoon could see the Earth below, blue and beautiful and safe. The crisis had changed humanity in ways no one had expected. Instead of retreating behind their borders, humans had become more aggressive about exploring and securing the galaxy. Any word from Krexthon's expedition? They found another Kethmori facility in the Outer Rim, but it was already abandoned. Whatever survivors escaped our attack on the homeworld, they're running scared. Yoon nodded. The alliance between humans and the surviving Vorthak had become stronger than anyone had imagined possible. Former enemies were now working together to hunt down the parasites that had manipulated them into war. "Sir," came a voice from behind them. Lieutenant Choi Ha-na approached, walking with only a slight limp from her injuries. She had refused medical retirement and instead become one of the best instructors in the new hunter training program. "Admiral Kim wants to see you in the briefing room." "What's the situation?" "We've got a problem in the Centauri sector. 3 colonies have gone completely dark. No communications for 72 hours. Yoon felt the familiar chill of danger. "Kethmori? Maybe. Or something new. The hunter team we sent to investigate hasn't reported back either." As they walked through the corridors of the station, Yoon reflected on how much had changed. The walls were covered with displays showing the locations of human colonies across the galaxy. Each one was protected by defense platforms and patrolled by hunter squadrons. Humanity had learned that the best defense was an aggressive offense. Admiral Kim Dae-ho was waiting in the briefing room, along with Specialist Shin Yuri and Sergeant Bang Woo-jin. All of them had been promoted and given leadership roles in the new organization, but they still worked together as a team when the situation demanded it. "Commander," Kim said as Yoon entered, "we have a developing situation that requires your attention." The main display showed a star map of the Centauri sector. 3 red dots marked the locations of the silent colonies. "Tell me what we know," Yoon said, taking his seat at the conference table. "Meridian Colony, New Tokyo, and Haven's Restall stopped transmitting at approximately the same time 3 days ago," Bang reported. "No distress signals, no emergency beacons. They just went quiet." "What about the patrol ships in that sector?" "The destroyer Relentless was supposed to check on Meridian Colony 2 days ago. We lost contact with them as well." Shin activated another display showing energy readings from the affected area. "I'm detecting some unusual phenomena in that region. High levels of exotic radiation and what appear to be artificial gravity distortions." "Could be a new type of alien technology," Park suggested. "Or an old one," Kim said grimly. "We've been assuming the Kethmori were the only ancient species playing games in our galaxy. What if we were wrong?" Yoon studied the tactical situation. "How many people are we talking about?" "About 200,000 colonists, plus the crew of the Relentless. Another 500 souls. Recommendations?" "I'm preparing a full fleet." "Response?" Kim said. 3 battle groups with hunter support teams." "No," Yoon said quietly. "If this is another manipulation species like the Kethmori, showing up with a massive fleet might be exactly what they want. We need to go in quiet and gather intelligence first." "The same approach that worked against the Kethmori, the same principles, but adapted to whatever we're facing now." "Hana, how fast can you get the Vengeance ready for a long-range mission?" "She's been upgraded with the latest hunter-killer systems. Give me 6 hours to run full diagnostics." "Do it. We leave as soon as she's ready." As the meeting broke up, and everyone went to prepare for the mission, Park pulled Yoon aside. "Are you sure about this approach?" she asked quietly. "After what happened with the Kethmori, maybe overwhelming force is the better option." "Maybe," Yoon admitted. "But we've learned that the galaxy is full of ancient species with technologies we don't understand. If we go in shooting first, we might start a war we can't win. And if we go in quietly and get absorbed like Admiral Lee, then we'll have to trust that we're smarter than he was." The Vengeance had been extensively modified since their first hunt for the Traitors. It now carried the most advanced sensors in the human fleet, weapons designed specifically for fighting biomechanical threats, and shielding that could protect against most known forms of alien mind control technology. As they traveled toward the Centauri sector, Krexthon joined them via quantum communication from his own ship. His image appeared on the main screen, slightly distorted by the long-distance transmission. Commander Yoon, I have been analyzing the data from the silent colonies. The energy patterns are not Kethmori in origin. What are they? Something older. Much older. My people have legends about a species called the Architects. They supposedly built massive structures throughout the galaxy millions of years ago, then disappeared. You think they're back? I think they never left. And I think they have been watching everything that has happened in our galaxy, including our war with the Kethmori. Shin looked up from her console. That would explain the unusual gravitational distortions. If these architects are capable of manipulating space-time on a large scale, they could make entire star systems disappear, Bang finished. Not destroy them. Hide them. From what? Park asked. From us, Yoon realized. From anyone who might threaten whatever they're building out there. As they approached the edge of the affected area, their sensors began detecting the strange phenomena Shin had mentioned. Space itself seemed twisted, with gravity waves flowing in impossible patterns. I'm reading massive artificial structures, Hana reported, but they're not showing up on visual scanners. It's like they exist in a different dimension. Take us in slowly, Yoon ordered, and be ready to retreat if things go wrong. As they moved deeper into the distorted space, reality began to shift around them. The stars outside changed position, forming new constellations that hurt to look at. And then suddenly, they could see them. The architects had built a structure so large it defied comprehension. It was a sphere the size of a small moon, but made of materials that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Around it, smaller structures floated like satellites, each one larger than a human city. My God, whispered Park. How long have they been building this? Since before my species evolved, Krexthon said over the communication link. The legends say the architects are older than galactic civilization itself. Are they hostile? Bang asked. Before anyone could answer, the main display activated. A figure appeared on the screen, but it was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was vaguely humanoid, but made of what looked like crystallized light. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Young species, it said, in perfect human language. You have passed the test. What test? Yoon asked. The test of wisdom. Your species showed great potential when you defeated the parasites called Kethmori. But potential is not enough. We needed to see if you would use your victory to conquer others or to protect them. And what did you conclude? You chose protection over conquest. You formed alliances with former enemies. You hunt down threats to innocent species. This shows wisdom beyond your years. Shin leaned forward. What happened to the colonies? Are the people safe? They are unharmed. We removed them from normal space to observe your response. You came with a small force, seeking to investigate rather than destroy. This confirms our assessment. The space around them began to shift again, and suddenly they could see the missing colonies floating intact near the artificial structures. The people were going about their daily lives, apparently unaware that they had been moved. "Why?" Yoon asked. "Why test us at all?" "Because the galaxy faces a threat far greater than the Keth Mori ever were. Something stirs in the void between galaxies, something that has been sleeping for eons. When it awakens, all life will be in danger." "What kind of threat?" "Devourers. Entities that exist only to consume matter and energy. They have destroyed entire galaxies before, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake." The architect's crystalline form shifted, showing them images of vast dark shapes moving between the stars, consuming everything in their path. "How do we fight something like that?" "With unity. With the cooperation of all intelligent species." The Keth Mori failed this test by choosing parasitism over partnership. "Your species has shown the wisdom to build alliances instead of empires."